In our last lesson, we learned about fundamental securities. We learned that stocks and bonds are really just a way of sharing the goodies that a corporation owns and the cash that it produces. In this lecture, we'll learn about stock markets, the institutions that let people like us buy and sell these securities. We'll learn that although the technology is high-tech and becoming more sophisticated every year, the basics are a lot like markets we encounter every day, such as markets for groceries or cars. If I asked you to think of a market for produce or for meat, then you'd probably feel comfortable with your understanding of the way those markets work. See, you have the main idea already. The rest is just details. Let's look more closely at the concept of a market. What is a market anyway? According to Merriam-Webster, the first definition boils down to just a meeting of people for the purpose of trade. There. That's all there is to it. You and I get together, perhaps in person, perhaps by phone or computer link, and we try to make a deal. Sometimes the goods are physically present at the market, like at a grocery store. Just about everything we buy is right there. We put it in our cart, and off we go. Sometimes the goods aren't physically present, even at the grocery store. For example, I might agree to buy a cake that you haven't even baked yet. There's nothing very mysterious about a market for food, is there? A market for houses is different from a grocery store in some ways. Apples at the grocery vary in quality, size, and price, but they're all pretty much the same compared to houses. Houses differ a lot more in a lot of different ways than apples. Sure, we expect apples to vary a few % in price, but houses can differ by a factor of 10, and we aren't surprised at all. Houses differ in size and age much more than apples. I can do some repairs or update an older home, but I've never heard of anyone updating an apple. These factors make a big difference in the structure of the market for apples and the market for houses, but the bottom line is that these markets are just a meeting of people for the purpose of trade. The same is true for the market for stocks, which is often just called the stock market, even though there are many stock markets around the world. Stock markets are just places or financial networks that let people trade shares of stock. Markets that work well share common traits. Competition is at the top of my list. I want lots of potential buyers if I'm selling, and on the other side of the deal, you want lots of potential sellers if you're buying. Nothing protects consumers better than competition. High trading volume is another plus. If I know how much 100 different people paid for their 100 apples today, then I have a good idea of how much I'm going to have to pay for the 101st apple. If there are lots of trades being made every day, then my trade isn't going to push the price very much in either direction. I'm going to get a price pretty close to the price of the guy who traded right before me, and it's going to be pretty close to the price that the guy who will trade immediately after me will get. That makes it far less likely that anyone is getting cheated. The concept of liquidity refers to the ability for a seller to find a buyer and to be able to make a deal without any trades being done at fire sale prices or at premium prices either. Well-functioning markets require both parties to have confidence in the terms of the deal. I need to be sure that if I mow your lawn on time and the way I promised to do it, then you'll pay me the price we agreed you'd pay. Contracts, even with strangers, are enforced by law in well-functioning markets. For the most part, goods and services should be pretty much as advertised. Warranties must be honored. You need to know that I have clear title to the car I'm selling, and sure enough, institutions like title companies have evolved to ensure that you do. Well-functioning markets also have low transactions costs, or at least as low as possible. Let's consider the U.S. housing market. Are its transactions low cost? A standard realtor's commission on a nice home can be tens of thousands of dollars. That's a pretty big chunk of money. Don't forget to add a tax or two, plus a title search and a transfer fee. Then there are the costs of your time. showing the house to buyers who always seem to want to visit at just the wrong time is pretty aggravating. These costs make it less likely that people will buy and sell houses than they would otherwise. But that doesn't mean that realtors' commissions are unfairly large. True, some people buy and sell homes without using a realtor, and thanks to modern technology, particularly the internet, it's getting easier to do that with every passing day. Still, many people value the services that a realtor provides. Maybe they don't have the time to handle the phone calls and arrange viewings. Maybe they don't have the knowledge to do it, and they're worried about making a big mistake. Or maybe they just don't have the desire to do it. These people are willing to pay a realtor to handle the transaction for them. Yes, it's a big transactions cost, but there are thousands of realtors out there, and all of them are eager to have your business. They'll compete to get it, too, either by promising lower fees or, more often, better service. Given all of that, it's hard to believe that realtors' commissions are unfairly large. Large, yes, but they're probably as low as possible given current technology and market conditions. It's the best we can do under the circumstances. Information problems can interfere with markets, too. George Akerlof gave us the best example in his famous paper in 1970, The Market for Lemons, Quality Uncertainty and the Market Mechanism. For some items, such as used cars, the seller knows way, way more about the item's condition and value than potential buyers. If his car were in such great shape, then why would he be selling it? Does it have a bad transmission? A bad electrical system? Maybe the owner is selling it during winter so that the failing air conditioner won't be so obvious. Potential buyers can't easily tell, and they're not going to risk getting snookered. They may not know exactly what's wrong with the car, but they'll assume something is wrong with it, and they'll bid less. That's okay for cars that really do have something wrong with them. In those cases, buyers are right when they assume something's wrong with the car. They offer to pay the value of a car with a problem, and that's what they get, a car with a problem. All's fair in that case. Society, though, has a different problem. Someone who wants to sell a car that really is in great shape has trouble getting fair value. That's because buyers still can't easily tell if something is wrong with the car, and they still know that the seller knows more than they do about it, so they still bid less. In this case, though, that price is too low because the car really is a good car. This information problem makes the market for good used cars break down. It's hard to sell a good used car at the right price. Information problems are most pronounced for things that are hard to value because they might have hidden problems. Stocks can fall into that category, but the problem isn't as bad as it is with used cars. First, there are millions, even billions of shares in some companies. Exxon had almost 4.5 billion shares outstanding in early 2013. And you know what? They are all identical. That's not like that used Honda you saw yesterday on the dealer's lot. There's no other car identical to that one. The mileage is different, the care it has received is different, and the wear and tear on the tires is different. Stock markets have another advantage over the used car market. Somebody bought some of those identical shares of Exxon very recently. During trading hours, the most recent sale was probably just a few seconds ago. Lots of smart people are spending lots of time studying those Exxon shares too. If the price gets too high or too low, then these smart people will jump in and take advantage of it. We can see the prices of their trades too, just by going online or watching the news or going to the company's website. It's easy to see what other people think the shares are worth, and information problems usually aren't large. In fact, I don't even need to know the price that all those other people got. All I need to do is go online and contact a broker or tell the computer or the broker that I want to buy or sell my shares, and the financial markets will make sure that lots of buyers or sellers will see my offer. These markets are set up so that buyers or sellers must compete with each other to give me the best price. The genesis of the New York Stock Exchange was way back on May 17, 1792, when 24 stockbrokers got together under the now famous buttonwood tree in front of 68 Wall Street. All 24 signed what became known as the Buttonwood Agreement. They set the rules for buying and selling the stocks and the bonds that are fundamental to the financial industry. Today, we enjoy the benefits of efficient, low-cost securities markets. Our ancestors didn't have it so good. Trading stocks was expensive and slow. Communication was more difficult, record keeping was done by hand, and lots of paper had to be mailed back and forth. From that modest beginning under the buttonwood tree, stock markets have undergone an explosion in their influence on our economy. The financial services sector comprised just 2.8% of the United States gross domestic product in 1950. In 2006, just before the financial crash of 2007, it had grown to 8.3%. Growth in trading volume is even more dramatic. According to the World Federation of Exchanges, the dollar volume of stocks traded on the New York Stock Exchange, now often called the NYSE, about doubled from 1997 to 2000, then followed up by tripling from 2000 to 2008. From 2001, when Shanghai first made the list at just under 300 billion, until 2008, Shanghai's trading volume jumped 9 times its 2001 volume to 2.6 trillion. From 1929 to 2009, the total trading volume of stocks in the Dow Jones Industrial Average doubled about every 7 or 8 years. And starting early in the 21st century, it began doubling about every 3 years. All of that increase in trading volume hasn't been uniform across the world. In 1990, the New York Stock Exchange headed the list of stock exchanges ranked by trading volume. The Tokyo Exchange was second, while the London and Frankfurt exchanges ranked third and fourth. The National Association of Securities Dealers Automated Quotation System, or NASDAQ, which is essentially a computerized trading system, was less than 20 years old and ranked fifth. Shanghai wasn't even on the list of the big exchanges in 1990. By the year 2000, though, the advantages of the NASDAQ system had rocketed it to the top of the list of trading venues, and by 2010, Shanghai was beginning to flex its muscles as a world financial center, mostly at the expense of European exchanges in Tokyo. Those exchanges were still growing in trading volume, just not fast enough to keep up with Shanghai and the NASDAQ.